They say twins share everything, thoughts, feelings, even dreams. But what they don't tell you is what happens when you share something you're not supposed to feel. When your parents leave for the first time in 18 years, and suddenly the person you've known your entire life looks at you differently. When the silence between you becomes louder than any words you've ever spoken. My name is Adrian, and this is the story of how one summer night changed everything between me and my twin brother, Elias. This is the story of how we discovered that some connections run deeper than blood, and some truths can't stay hidden forever. The grandfather clock in our hallway struck 9 as I watched our parents' car disappear down the tree-lined street. Mom had checked her luggage 3 times, Dad had repeated the emergency contact list twice, and both had hugged us like we were still children instead of 18-year-olds about to start college in the fall. 3 weeks, Mom had said, holding both our faces in her hands. 3 weeks in Europe for our anniversary. You boys will be fine, right? We're adults, Mom, Elias had replied with that easy smile that made everyone trust him. We've got this. But now, standing in the sudden silence of our empty house, I wasn't so sure what this was anymore. Finally, Elias breathed beside me and I felt that familiar flutter in my chest, the one I'd been trying to ignore for the past 2 years. I thought they'd never leave. I turned to look at him, really look at him, which was something I'd been carefully avoiding lately. We were identical in almost every way, same dark hair that curled slightly at the ends, same green eyes, same athletic build from years of swimming together. But where I saw myself as ordinary, Elias had this quality that made him magnetic. Maybe it was his confidence, or the way he moved through the world like he belonged everywhere. Or maybe it was just that I'd fallen in love with him, and love makes everything about a person seem extraordinary. Earth to Adrian, Elias said, waving a hand in front of my face. You okay? You've been weird all day. Fine, I lied, pushing past him toward the kitchen. Just thinking about the summer reading list for college, right? Because that's totally what you're stressed about. His voice followed me, tinged with something I couldn't quite identify. Come on, it's our first night of freedom. Let's actually do something fun. Like what? I don't know, we could watch that movie you've been wanting to see, the one you bookmarked but always closed the tab when I walked in. My heart stopped. I don't know what you're talking about, Adrian. His voice was closer now, right behind me. I'm your twin brother, I know when you're hiding something. Irony of that statement almost made me laugh. If he really knew what I was hiding, he wouldn't be standing this close to me. He wouldn't look at me with those concerned eyes that made me want to confess everything. It's nothing, I said, busying myself with getting a glass of water I didn't want. Just some indie film, probably boring anyway. It because it's a gay romance? The glass slipped from my hand, shattering against the tile floor. Water splashed across both our feet, but I couldn't move, couldn't breathe, couldn't think of anything except the way Elias had said those words, casual, gentle, like it was the most normal thing in the world. Get the broom, he said softly, stepping carefully around the broken glass. We cleaned in silence, our hands occasionally brushing as we picked up the larger pieces. Each touch felt electric, dangerous, like I was playing with fire and didn't know how to stop. Adrian, Elias said as we threw away the last of the glass. Can we talk about what? About why you've been avoiding me for the past 6 months, about why you flinch every time I touch you, about why you look at me like. He paused, running a hand through his hair, a gesture I recognized as his tell when he was nervous. Like I'm going to hurt you or something. Please don't lie to me. His voice cracked slightly. We've never lied to each other. We've been best friends since before we were born. What changed? Everything. I wanted to say. I changed. The way I see you changed. The way my heart beats when you're near changed. But instead I just stood there, frozen by the weight of all the words I couldn't say. I saw your journal, Elias admitted, his eyes meeting mine with an intensity that made my knees weak. Last month when you left it open on your desk, I didn't mean to read it, I swear, but I saw my name and I couldn't stop. World tilted, my journal. The one where I'd poured out every confused feeling, every midnight thought, every desperate wish that things could be different. Where I'd written about the way his laugh made my chest ache, about the dreams I woke up from with his name on my lips, about the guilt that consumed me for feeling this way about my own brother. Elias, my voice failed me. Not mad, he said quickly, taking a step closer. I'm not disgusted or freaked out or any of the things you're probably thinking, I need to know if you meant it, if you really feel that way about me. I wanted to run. Every instinct screamed at me to make up an excuse to laugh it off, to pretend those journal entries were just creative writing or confused teenage emotions. But Elias' eyes held mine, and in them I saw something that looked like hope. Yes, I whispered, the confession tearing out of me like a wound. I meant every word. And I'm sorry, I'm so sorry, I know it's wrong and messed up, and what if it's not? The question hung in the air between us, impossible and terrifying and full of a promise I didn't dare believe in. What? Elias took another step closer, close enough that I could feel the warmth radiating from his body, could count the flecks of gold in his green eyes. What if it's not wrong? What if I've been feeling the same thing? My heart was pounding so hard I thought it might break through my ribs. You can't mean that. Been in love with you since we were 16, Adrian. His voice was barely above a whisper, but it thundered through me. I just didn't know how to tell you, didn't know if what I was feeling was even possible, if it made me some kind of monster. But reading your journal, knowing I wasn't alone in this. Elias, his name came out like a prayer. I understand if you need time, he continued, words tumbling out in a rush. I understand if this is too much, too soon, too complicated. But Mom and Dad are gone for 3 weeks and I couldn't keep pretending anymore. I couldn't spend another night in the room next to yours, knowing how you feel, knowing how I feel, and not do something about it. What are you saying? He reached out slowly, giving me every opportunity to pull away and cup my face in his hands. His touch was gentle, reverent, and it sent shivers down my spine, saying that maybe we don't have to keep pretending, just for these 3 weeks. Just to see what it could be like, to finally be honest with each other. This is insane, I breathed, but I didn't pull away. I know, people would think I know. Can't tell anyone ever, I know. His thumb traced my cheekbone and I couldn't help leaning into the touch. But in this house for these 3 weeks we don't have to be twins who happen to look alike. We can just be Adrian and Elias, two people who love each other, I finished, finally allowing myself to say it out loud. The smile that spread across his face was like sunrise. Yeah, exactly that. We stood there for a long moment, just holding each other's gaze, the weight of years of hidden feelings finally acknowledged between us. The house seemed to hold its breath, waiting to see what we would do next. Scared, I admitted. Me too, Elias said, but I'm more scared of waking up in 10 years and wondering what could have been. Aren't you? I was, God, I was. I'd spent so many nights imagining a future where I watched him fall in love with someone else, marry someone else, build a life with someone who wasn't me. The thought of it was like drowning in slow motion. So what do we do? I asked. We take it slow, he said. We figure this out together the way we figured everything else out, and if it doesn't work, if it's too weird or too complicated, then we stop. No harm, no foul. We go back to being brothers, nothing more. We both knew that was a lie. There was no going back from this moment. The second I nodded, the second I let him pull me closer, we were crossing a line that couldn't be uncrossed. Okay, I whispered. 3 weeks, he agreed, and then he kissed me. It was soft, tentative, a question more than a statement. His lips were warm against mine, tasting of the peppermint gum he always chewed. Every nerve in my body came alive. Singing with a rightness I'd never felt before. This wasn't the clumsy, experimental kiss I'd shared with girls at parties, trying to convince myself I was normal. This was coming home. When we finally pulled apart, both breathing hard, Elias rested his forehead against mine. We're really doing this, he said, sounding amazed. We're really doing this, I confirmed, unable to stop the smile spreading across my face. That night we stayed up until dawn, talking about everything we'd been too afraid to say. We sat on the couch in the living room, my head on his shoulder, his arm around me, and it felt like the most natural thing in the world. He told me about the first time he realized his feelings for me were more than brotherly. At a pool party sophomore year when he'd seen me laughing with friends and felt a jealousy so fierce it had scared him. I told him about the dreams that had plagued me, the guilt that had eaten at me, the countless nights I'd cried myself to sleep thinking I was broken. Not broken, Elias said firmly, tilting my chin up to meet his eyes. Neither of us are what we feel. Maybe it's complicated, maybe it's unconventional, but it's real. And it's ours. As the first light of dawn crept through the windows, painting everything in shades of gold and pink, I realized that for the first time in 2 years I felt at peace. The secret that had been slowly destroying me was now out in the open, shared with the one person who understood. 3 weeks, I said again, like a promise. 3 weeks, Elias echoed, pressing a kiss to my temple. And then we'll see where we are. But even then, I think we both knew that 3 weeks would never be enough. The morning after our confession should have been awkward. I'd spent half the night lying awake, convinced that sunrise would bring regret, that Elias would wake up and realize what a mistake we'd made. But when I finally dragged myself downstairs around 9, following the smell of coffee and something burning, I found him in the kitchen, wearing his favorite band t-shirt and a sheepish grin. I attempted pancakes, he announced, gesturing to a plate of thoroughly blackened circles. Emphasis on attempted. I couldn't help but laugh, and the sound seemed to break whatever tension lingered between us. You've been making pancakes since we were 12. How did you mess this up? I was distracted. His eyes met mine, warm and full of something that made my stomach flip. Thinking about someone. Really. I moved closer, emboldened by the way he'd said it, like it was the easiest thing in the world to admit. Anyone I know, this guy, twin brother actually, kind of drives me crazy. Elias set down the spatula and turned fully toward me, closing the distance between us. Spent the whole night in the room next to mine, so close but so far away, made it really hard to concentrate on breakfast. My breath caught as he reached out, fingers brushing a strand of hair from my forehead. The gesture was simple, intimate, and it reminded me that this was real. Yesterday hadn't been a dream. We could fix that, I said softly. The so far away part. His voice dropped an octave. What did you have in mind? Before I could answer, my phone buzzed on the counter. Mom's face lit up the screen. She was video calling. We both froze, the moment shattering like glass. Answer it, Elias said, stepping back and running a hand through his hair. Act normal, right, like I hadn't just spent the night discovering that my twin brother was in love with me, that he kissed like drowning and salvation all at once, that every time he looked at me now my entire world tilted on its axis. I answered the call, plastering on what I hoped was a casual smile. Hey Mom, good morning sweethearts. Mom's cheerful face filled the screen, the Eiffel Tower visible in the background. Just wanted to check in. How was your first night? Great, Elias called out, appearing beside me with those same burnt pancakes. Just making breakfast, everything's under control. We spent 10 minutes assuring our parents we hadn't burned down the house or thrown a party. Dad gave us his usual lecture about responsibility. Mom reminded us about the casseroles in the freezer, and all the while I was hyper-aware of Elias' shoulder pressed against mine, the way his pinky finger was hooked around my own where the camera couldn't see. When we finally hung up, we both exhaled in relief. That was close, I said. We're going to have to be more careful, Elias agreed. They're going to call every couple of days. Reality of what we were doing, the secrecy, the lies by omission settled over me like a weight. Maybe this is a sign, maybe we should just… Adrian. Elias took my phone and set it aside, then gently grasped both my hands. I don't want to pressure you. If you want to stop, if this is too much, we stop, but please don't let fear make that decision for you. I'm not afraid, I protested. Yes, you are. His thumb traced circles on the back of my hand. I am too. But I'd rather be scared together than safe apart. Wouldn't you? The answer was obvious in the way my heart raced, in the way I couldn't stop looking at his lips, remembering how they'd felt against mine. Yes, then let's not waste the time we have. He tugged me toward the living room where morning sunlight streamed through the bay windows. Come on, let's do something normal. Well, normal for us. We ended up sprawled on the floor like we had countless times before, video game controllers in hand, competing in our favorite racing game. But everything felt different now. When Elias trash-talked me, there was a warmth in his voice that hadn't been there before. When our shoulders bumped during particularly intense moments, the contact lingered. When I won a race and he tackled me in mock frustration, we both froze as we ended up tangled together on the carpet, his face inches from mine. Hi, he whispered. Hi, I whispered back. Can I kiss you again? You have to ask. His smile was the last thing I saw before his lips met mine, and this time there was no hesitation. The kiss deepened, grew more confident, and I discovered that kissing Elias was something I could happily do for the rest of my life. His hand cupped the back of my neck, fingers threading through my hair, and I made a sound I'd never made before, something between a sigh and a plea. We pulled apart, both breathing hard, and Elias pressed his forehead to mine. We should probably establish some ground rules, he said, though his voice suggested he'd rather do anything but talk. Like what? Like how far we're willing to take this, what's okay and what's not. I don't want to push you into anything you're not ready for. I appreciated the consideration, even as every cell in my body screamed that I was ready for anything involving him. I think we should just see where things go. Naturally, no pressure, no expectations. We keep this between us, Elias added, at least for now, until we figure out what this even is. Agreed. I sat up, pulling him with me. And we promised to be honest. If something feels wrong or if we need space, we say so. Deal. He sealed it with another quick kiss, and I wondered if I'd ever get used to the thrill of it. The rest of the day unfolded with a strange mix of normal and extraordinary. We did the dishes together, our hands bumping under the soapy water. We lounged by the pool in the backyard, and when Elias suggested we swim, I agreed, even though it meant seeing him shirtless, something that had become increasingly difficult over the past year as we'd both filled out from our swim team training. Race you to the end, Elias challenged, already diving in. I followed, and for a few minutes it was just like old times, two competitive brothers pushing each other to swim faster, harder, better. But when we reached the edge, when he pulled himself up beside me, water streaming down his body, I couldn't look away. What? He asked, catching me staring. Nothing, just, you're really attractive. The words came out before I could stop them. Elias' entire face lit up. Yeah, I ducked my head, suddenly embarrassed. Is that weird to say? Adrian, look at me. He waited until I met his eyes. You can say anything to me, and for the record, you're the most beautiful person I've ever seen. I've thought so since we were kids, even before I understood why. Look exactly alike. No, we don't, not really. His hand came up to trace my jawline, and I shivered despite the warm afternoon sun. You have this little scar on your chin from when you fell off your bike at 7. Your left eye has more gold in it than your right. You bite your bottom lip when you're thinking, and you get this little crease between your eyebrows when you're worried. I know every detail of your face, Adrian, and none of it looks like mine. It just looks like home. I kissed him then. Not caring that we were outside where neighbors might see, not caring about anything except showing him what his words meant to me. When we finally pulled apart, both of us were trembling. We should probably go inside, Elias said reluctantly. Yeah, probably, but neither of us moved. That evening, after ordering pizza and binging episodes of a show we'd been meaning to watch, we ended up on the couch again. This time Elias stretched out with his head in my lap, and I automatically started running my fingers through his hair, something I'd done 1,000 times before, but that now felt charged with new meaning. Tell me what you're thinking, he said softly. Thinking this doesn't feel wrong, I admitted. I kept waiting for that moment where I'd realize we'd made a mistake, but it hasn't come. Being with you like this just feels right. I know what you mean. He caught my hand, pressing a kiss to my palm. It's like we've been holding our breath our entire lives and can finally exhale. What happens after the 3 weeks? The question I'd been avoiding all day finally tumbled out. When Mom and Dad come back, when we go to college, Elias sat up, turning to face me. I don't know, I wish I did, but Adrian, I refuse to believe that the only time we can be together is when our parents are gone. There has to be a way. Can't exactly tell them, hey, by the way, your twin sons are in love with each other. They'd freak out, everyone would. So we don't tell them, not yet anyway. He took both my hands in his. We'll figure it out. Maybe we get an apartment together for college. That wouldn't be unusual for twins. Maybe we're just careful, discreet. Lots of people have secret relationships. Those people aren't brothers. Half the world would say what we're doing is wrong no matter what, Elias pointed out gently. Being gay is still illegal in some countries, but that doesn't make what we feel any less valid. So yeah, we're twins, and yeah, that adds another layer of complication. But at the end of the day, we're two consenting adults who care about each other. Isn't that what matters? I wanted to believe him. I wanted to believe we could find a way to make this work beyond these stolen 3 weeks. But the fear was still there, lurking beneath every kiss, every touch. I don't want to lose you, I whispered. Not as my brother, not as my best friend. If we do this and it falls apart, it won't. His certainty was absolute. Adrian, I've known you literally my entire life. You're my other half in every sense of the word. A romantic relationship doesn't erase that foundation, it builds on it. We're going to be okay. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in my bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to the familiar sounds of Elias moving around in his room next door. The wall between us had never seemed thinner or more insurmountable. Around midnight, my door creaked open. Can't sleep either, Elias whispered. No, I stay with you. Just to sleep, I don't want to be apart tonight. My answer was to lift the blanket in invitation. He crossed the room quickly, sliding into bed beside me, and we arranged ourselves carefully, his arm around my waist, my head on his chest, our legs tangled together. Okay, he murmured into my hair. More than okay. We lay there in the darkness, listening to each other breathe, and I realized that this simple intimacy was what I'd been craving without knowing it. Not just the kissing or the physical attraction, but the comfort of being held by someone who knew every part of me and loved me anyway. You for being brave enough to say something, for giving us this chance. His arms tightened around me. Thank you for not running away when I did. I fell asleep like that, wrapped in his warmth, and for the first time in years I didn't have any nightmares. I dreamed instead of a future where this was possible, where we didn't have to hide, where love was enough. When I woke in the morning, Elias was still there, watching me with soft eyes. Good morning, he said, voice rough with sleep. Good morning. Still okay with this? I answered by kissing him, slow and sweet, a promise of all the mornings I hoped we'd have together. The next few days passed in a blur of stolen moments and new discoveries. We learned how to be together in this new way while still being the brothers we'd always been. We cooked together, laughed together, argued over stupid things, and made up just as quickly. But now there were also long conversations that stretched into the night, whispered confessions of fears and hopes. There were kisses that started soft and grew urgent, hands exploring with reverent curiosity, learning the map of each other's bodies. We were careful, always stopping before things went too far, both of us wanting to take our time. But the tension built with each passing day, a sweet ache that left us both breathless and wanting more. On the fifth night, as we lay together in my bed, a habit we'd fallen into, Elias propped himself up on his elbow, looking down at me with an intensity that made my pulse race. Love you, he said simply. Not just as a brother, as everything. I'm in love with you, Adrian, and I need you to know that. Tears pricked my eyes. I love you too, so much it scares me. Be scared. He wiped away a tear that had escaped. Whatever happens, we're in this together. And in that moment, wrapped in his arms, I believed him. The second week of our parents' absence brought a kind of freedom we hadn't anticipated. We stopped second-guessing every touch, every look. We allowed ourselves to just exist in this space we'd created, a bubble where we were simply Adrian and Elias, two people discovering what it meant to be in love. But it also brought challenges. We should go out, Elias suggested one afternoon as we lounged on the back patio. Like, actually leave the house. We've barely been anywhere except the grocery store. I tensed immediately. What if someone sees us? Sees us doing what? Hanging out? We're brothers, Adrian. We're literally supposed to spend time together. What if I look at you the wrong way or touch you without thinking? Or, hey, he moved closer, taking my hand. I'm not suggesting we make out in public. I'm just saying we could go to a movie or grab dinner somewhere, be normal people for a few hours. He was right, of course. Hiding in the house was starting to feel less like safety and more like a prison. And I missed the world outside, missed doing things together without the weight of secrecy pressing down on us every second. Okay, I agreed. Let's go out. We ended up at a small indie movie theater across town, far enough from our neighborhood that we were unlikely to run into anyone who knew us. The film was some artsy drama that neither of us particularly cared about, but sitting in the dark theater, our arms pressed together on the shared armrest, felt dangerously normal. Halfway through the movie, Elias' hand found mine in the darkness between our seats. My heart hammered as his fingers laced with mine, the touch innocent and yet impossibly intimate. I glanced around, paranoid that someone would see, but the theater was nearly empty and no one was paying attention to us. Relax, Elias whispered, leaning close enough that I could feel his breath on my ear. We're just two brothers who happen to be holding hands, could mean anything. But the way his thumb traced circles on the back of my hand meant everything. After the movie, we grabbed food at a small diner, sitting across from each other in a worn vinyl booth. We talked about college, about the classes we were taking, about the roommate situation we'd carefully arranged so we'd be living in the same dorm building. What if we meet other people? I asked suddenly, the thought that had been nagging at me for days finally surfacing. At college, what if you find someone else? Elias's expression softened. Adrian, I'm not going to find someone else. You're not a placeholder until something better comes along. You're it for me. You can't know that. We've barely been together for a week. Been in love with you for 2 years, he reminded me gently. That's not going to change just because we're in a different location. What about you? I pushed. What if I meet someone? Do you think you will? No, I admitted. I can't imagine wanting anyone else when I have you. Then we're on the same page. He reached across the table, palm up, and I placed my hand in his without hesitation. We'll figure out the logistics, we've always been good at that. On the drive home, I felt lighter than I had in days. Maybe Elias was right. Maybe we really could make this work beyond our 3-week bubble. Maybe. My phone rang, shattering my thoughts. Mom again. Let it go to voicemail, Elias suggested, but I shook my head. She'll just worry and call back. I answered and immediately I knew something was wrong. Mom's voice was tight, strained in a way I'd rarely heard. Adrian, honey, is Elias with you? Yeah, we're both here. What's wrong? It's your Aunt Linda. She had a heart attack. Mom's voice cracked. We're at the hospital in London. She's stable now, but we need to stay. The doctors want to monitor her for at least another week, maybe 2. My stomach dropped. Mom, I'm so sorry. Is she going to be okay? They think so, but it was close. I heard Dad's voice in the background, murmuring something. Boys, I know we said 3 weeks, but it might be longer now. Can you handle it? We can try to find someone to come stay with you if. We're fine, Mom, Elias said, leaning over so he could be heard. We're 18, we can take care of ourselves. You focus on Aunt Linda. We spent another 20 minutes on the phone getting details, assuring them we were okay, promising to keep up with our chores and responsibilities. When we finally hung up, Elias pulled over to the side of the road. So, he said carefully, 4 weeks, maybe 5. Yeah, how do you feel about that? I considered the question honestly. A few weeks ago, I would have been thrilled at the prospect of more time alone. But now, with everything that had happened between us, I felt a mix of excitement and dread. Feel like we're running out of time to figure this out, I admitted. Like the clock is ticking even faster now. Or, Elias suggested, we have more time than we thought, time to figure out how to make this work in the real world. When we got home, we didn't immediately retreat to our usual spots. Instead, we went to Elias' room bigger than mine with a better view of the backyard and sat on his bed facing each other cross-legged. Talk to me, Elias said. What's really bothering you? Everything came pouring out then, all the fears I'd been holding back. The terror of being caught, of our family finding out, of losing the life we'd always known. The guilt that still crept in sometimes, whispering that what we were doing was wrong. The uncertainty about what would happen when college started, when we had roommates and new friends and couldn't control every aspect of our environment. Elias listened to it all without interrupting. And when I finally ran out of words, he pulled me into his arms. I wish I could promise you that everything will be okay, he said softly. I wish I could guarantee that we'll never get caught, that no one will ever judge us, that this will be easy. But I can't. All I can promise is that I'm not going anywhere, that I'll be by your side through whatever comes, that this us is worth fighting for. You really believe that, with everything I am? He pulled back enough to look into my eyes. Adrian, I've spent my whole life knowing you were my other half. Now I just understand it in a different way. You're my twin, yes, but you're also my best friend, my confidant, my partner. Adding boyfriend to that list doesn't diminish the rest, it completes it. I kissed him then, pouring all my emotion into it, the love, the fear, the desperate hope that he was right. And he kissed me back with equal fervor, his hands cupping my face like I was something precious. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, I made a decision. Stay with me tonight, I said. Not in my room, in yours. I want to fall asleep here, wake up here. I don't want to waste another night sleeping in separate rooms. You sure? Sure. That night was different from all the others. We changed into sleep clothes, moving around each other with an easy familiarity, and climbed into his bed. But instead of immediately settling into sleep, we talked, really talked about everything. Elias told me about the first time he'd realized his feelings had shifted from brotherly to romantic. It was junior year at the winter formal. I'd gone with a girl named Jessica, and he'd watched me dance with her, holding her close, and felt a jealousy so fierce it had scared him. He'd spent months trying to convince himself it was just protective brother instincts, but deep down he'd known the truth. I told him about my own awakening, a night that summer when we'd stayed up late watching movies, and he'd fallen asleep with his head on my shoulder. I'd looked down at his peaceful face, felt the warmth of him against me, and suddenly everything had clicked into place. Every odd feeling, every confused moment, every time my heart had raced around him, it all made sense in that instant, and it had terrified me. I cried after you went to bed, I confessed, because I knew I could never have what I wanted, that wanting it all made me wrong somehow. Not wrong, Elias said fiercely. Neither of us are, this is just how we love. And maybe it's not conventional, maybe it's complicated, but it's real, it's ours. As the night deepened, our conversation turned to the future. We made plans, tentative, hopeful plans about college, about finding ways to be together without raising suspicions, about the possibility of someday somehow building a life that accommodated this love we'd found. What if we just didn't hide it? I suggested quietly. In college, I mean. What if we just told people we're dating? Adrian, we look exactly alike. People would know we're brothers. So we say we're twins who happen to also be together. Or I don't know, we could tell people we're not related. It's college, no one knows our history. Elias was quiet for a long moment. You'd really be willing to do that, to live openly as a couple? I don't know, I admitted. Maybe, the idea of hiding forever, of pretending you're just my brother when you're so much more. I don't know if I can do that. We'll cross that bridge when we get to it, Elias decided. For now, let's just focus on this, on us, on making the most of the time we have. He kissed me then, soft and slow, and I let myself sink into it. His hand slipped under my shirt, warm against my skin, and I gasped into his mouth. We'd been building to this all week, the touches growing bolder, the kisses lasting longer, and suddenly I didn't want to wait anymore. Elias, I breathed against his lips. Yeah, I mean if you want to, we could, he pulled back, eyes searching mine. Are you sure we don't have to rush anything? Sure, I trust you, I love you, and I want this. What followed was a slow exploration of new territory, careful and tender, full of whispered reassurances and gentle guidance. We learned each other in ways we'd only imagined, and every touch felt like a revelation. When it was over, we lay tangled together, both shaking slightly, hearts racing in sync. "Are you okay?" Elias asked, pressing kisses to my temple, my cheek, the corner of my mouth. "Better than okay," I assured him. That was perfect. Yeah, it really was. We fell asleep like that, wrapped around each other, and I dreamed of a future where every night could be like this. The remaining weeks passed in a golden haze. We fell into a rhythm, days spent doing normal sibling things, nights spent as something more. We video called our parents regularly, assuring them everything was fine. We cooked elaborate dinners together, swam in the pool, binge-watched entire TV series. And through it all, we were learning how to be partners as well as brothers, learning the boundaries of our new relationship, learning that love could take many forms and still be valid. One afternoon, with only 3 days left before our parents' return, we were lying in the backyard looking up at the clouds when Elias rolled onto his side to face me. "Been thinking," he said, "dangerous pastime." He smiled, but it didn't quite reach his eyes. "What happens in 3 days? Do we just go back to being regular brothers? Pretend these weeks never happened?" Been dreading this conversation, but I knew it had to happen. "I don't think we can go back, not really. But we have to be smart about it." "What's the plan?" We spent the next hour mapping it out. In public, around our parents, we'd be the same as we'd always been, close but clearly platonic. But in private, in moments we could steal, we'd be us. At college, we'd figure out our living situation, find ways to be together without raising eyebrows. It wasn't perfect, and it would require constant vigilance, but it was something. "And someday," I said, "when we're established, financially independent, living our own lives, maybe then we can be more open, maybe then it won't matter so much." "You really think that day will come?" "I have to believe it will, because the alternative, spending the rest of my life hiding how I feel about you, that's not living, that's just existing." Elias kissed me long and deep, and when we pulled apart, I saw tears in his eyes. "Love you so much," he whispered. "More than I ever thought it was possible to love someone." "I love you too, always have. Just in different ways, and I always will." The night before our parents returned, we lay in bed together one last time, memorizing the feeling of being this close, this open. "Promise me something," Elias said into the darkness. "Anything. Promise me we won't lose this. That even if we have to hide it, even if it gets hard, we'll remember these weeks. We'll remember what it feels like to be completely ourselves with each other." "I promise," I said, and sealed it with a kiss. The next morning, we cleaned the house from top to bottom, removing any evidence of our changed relationship. Separate rooms, separate beds, every trace of our secret erased, at least on the surface. But nothing could erase what we discovered in those stolen weeks, the truth we now carried in our hearts. When our parents' car pulled into the driveway that evening, Elias and I exchanged one quick glance, a whole conversation in a single look before we ran out to greet them. "We missed you," exclaimed, pulling us both into a hug. "How's Aunt Linda?" I asked. "Better, she'll make a full recovery, thank God." Dad clapped us both on the shoulders. "How are you boys? House is still standing, I see." "Managed," Elias said, and I heard the double meaning in his words. That night, back in my own room, I lay awake listening to the familiar sounds of Elias in his room next door. My phone buzzed with a text. "Elias, you awake?" "Me? Yeah, Elias, this is going to be harder than I thought." "Me, I know. But we'll figure it out." Elias, 3 weeks wasn't enough." "Me, no. But maybe it was just the beginning." "Elias, I love you." "Me, I love you too." "Good night." "Elias, good night." I set my phone aside and closed my eyes, holding on to the memories of the past few weeks like precious treasures. We had crossed a line we could never uncross, discovered a love we could never undiscover. The path ahead was uncertain, full of obstacles and challenges we were only beginning to understand. But as I drifted off to sleep, I wasn't afraid anymore. Because whatever came next, we'd face it together as brothers, as best friends, and as something more, something that didn't have a name, didn't need one. It was just us, and that was enough. College was everything and nothing like we'd imagined. We'd gotten rooms in the same dorm, different floors, but close enough to visit easily. We'd made friends, joined clubs, attended classes. To everyone around us, we were just Adrian and Elias, the inseparable twin brothers. But in the moments between, in the late-night study sessions that turned into something more, in the weekend trips we took, just the two of us, in the careful touches that looked brotherly but meant so much more, we were finding our way. It wasn't easy. There were close calls, moments when we nearly got caught, times when the pressure of hiding felt unbearable. But there were also perfect moments, stolen kisses in empty stairwells, hands held under tables in dark restaurants, nights spent in each other's rooms with the door locked and the world kept at bay. One evening, as we walked back to campus from dinner, Elias took my hand. I started to pull away. We were in public, someone might see, but he held firm. "Let them see," he said quietly. "We're just two guys holding hands, could be brothers, could be friends, could be more. Let them think what they want." And so I held on, and we walked together through the twilit streets, and for the first time since that summer, I felt truly free. Later, in his room, I voiced the question that had been on my mind. Do you ever regret it, those 3 weeks starting this? Elias pulled me close, pressing a kiss to my forehead. Not for a single second, do you? No, I said, and I meant it. I just wish it could be easier. Maybe someday it will be, but even if it's not, even if we have to be careful forever, I'll never regret loving you. You're worth every risk, every complication, every moment of fear. You're worth everything. And in his arms, with his heart beating against mine, I knew he was right. What we had wasn't conventional, wasn't easy, wasn't what anyone would expect. But it was ours, this love we discovered when our parents left, when the walls came down, when we finally allowed ourselves to be honest. 3 weeks had changed everything, and I wouldn't trade a single moment of what we'd found for all the normalcy in the world. Because sometimes love doesn't follow the rules. Sometimes it's messy and complicated and scary, but when it's real, when it's this deep, this true, it's worth fighting for. And we were just getting started.